County 911.
Oh, I killed my boyfriend in self-defense.
Okay, what's his name?
Ryan Carter Poston. He's an attorney in Cincinnati.
We are talking about the Shaina Hubers case. How could we not?
There was no doubt about who pulled the trigger. This wasn't a whodunit.
And I grabbed the gun and I shot him.
The question that was left for all of us to decide was the why.
Very bizarre. Nothing like I've ever heard before.
Ms. Hubers' psychological condition was seriously abnormal.
At any point in time, when you were with Miss Hubers, did you see tears?
No, ma'am.
This case was about two people who never should have gotten together.
Ryan always put pressure on me to orgasm.
I thought that she was clingy. I thought she was a girlfriend that couldn't let go.
He had a new love interest. That's what sent her over the edge.
She was just very, very upset, and she was kind of saying how she was going to kill him.
There were only two ways he was leaving his condo that night. Either as Shayna's boyfriend or in a body bag.
Your wife is in a bar. You said she's unresponsive.
This is what he's going to tell you.
How to get out of that situation.
And I grabbed the gun.
Trying to find the first place to put a body.
No, sir.
The only thing they could do was kill him.
You want to say anything? We, the jury, and to find the defendant.
Ryan was the most laid-back, easy guy you'd ever meet. He was a very good lawyer. Carried himself like a professional. It was always important to Ryan to carry yourself.
Looks mattered to Ryan Poston, a young Cincinnati lawyer.
You always have to look professional. You have to look like a lawyer. He thought that it was important.
And looks mattered to his new girlfriend, Shaina Hubers, a college student across the river in Kentucky.
Shaina Hubers is a very talented woman. She got through school in 3 years. She had a scholarship in music. She had a lot going for her.
He added her as a Facebook friend after he saw some photos from her from spring break. Shaina is a very pretty girl. You know, that's undisputed. And he saw something that he liked looking at, I guess.
For Shaina, this relationship was everything. And having Ryan on her arm sure looked good. Telling people that she was dating this 29-year-old attorney who had his own firm in Cincinnati sure sounded good.
They dated on and off for more than 18 months, leaving a trail of text messages that documented a very rocky, on-again, off-again, obsessive relationship, replete with jealousy and deceit and rage. A relationship that would end with Ryan Poston dead on his apartment floor and Shaina Hubers on trial for murder.
I grabbed the gun and I shot him.
In the days leading up to his murder, Ryan was pulling away.
I thought that she was clingy. I thought she was a girlfriend that couldn't let go. He didn't want to hurt her feelings. He wanted her nicely to go away.
She communicated to her friends that she was losing him, that she thought it could be real this time.
We found countless instances where Shaina Hubers would show up at his apartment, somehow get in, and be laying naked on the couch when he came home from work. And Ryan just wasn't that into her. She tried everything she could from a sexual perspective to get that interest. It just wasn't working. He had finally found the strength to say he was done. Business was good, his friends were good, and he had a new love interest. That's what sent her over the edge.
A former Miss Ohio, Audrey Bolte.
Ohio.
On the night he would die, Ryan and Audrey were supposed to go on their first date.
I think Shaina Hubers would have been upset if Ryan Poston was dating anybody else, but when you throw into the mix the fact that this was a beauty queen, I think that really sent her off. She had downloaded a picture of Audrey when she became Miss Ohio, downloaded that onto her computer just hours before Ryan was shot and killed.
It all came to a head just after 8 o'clock on a Friday night at Ryan Poston's apartment in the Cincinnati suburb of Highland Heights, Kentucky.
Campbell County 911.
Oh, I killed my boyfriend in self-defense.
Okay, hold on. What did you kill him with?
A loaded gun in the house.
Tell me where the gun is right now.
The gun is in the house. I laid it on the bookshelf.
Where are you?
I'm standing about 10 feet from his dead body.
Okay, are you sure that he is dead?
He's dead, ma'am. He's completely dead.
We later found out that she had called her mother first. She made the statement that she waited 15 minutes to call the police. I don't know what would have happened had she stopped right then and called 911. He may have still had a chance.
I'm not a murderer, man. I just killed him.
What happened exactly? What happened?
He beat me and carried me out of the house.
He didn't.
He beat me and tried to carry me out of the house, and I came back in to get my things, and he was right in front of me, and he reached down and grabbed the gun, and I grabbed it out of his hand and pulled the trigger.
Okay. All right. Do you need an ambulance? Have you been injured?
I'm not injured, ma'am. I was thrown into the side of the couch.
Okay. Have you had a history of domestic violence with him?
Yes.
So he slammed you into the couch, but you don't have any injuries?
I don't have any injuries. I was just very frightened. He's a lot bigger than me. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. I'm 5'8", 120. He threw me across the room, and I was very startled. I was laying on the floor.
Okay.
And I killed him.
And then the call ended with this astounding admission from Shaina Hubers.
Ma'am, and then because he was twitching and I knew he was going to die anyway, and he was making funny noises, I shot him a couple more times just to kill him because I knew he would have been.
I'm sorry, you said you shot him a couple more times after that?
Yeah,
How many times did you shoot him total?
I don't know.
Okay, because he was twitching and you knew he was going to die, so you shot him again?
Enough to make sure he was dead because he was twitching so bad and I didn't want to lay there and twitch.
So you shot him instead of calling 911?
I did because I knew he was going to die anyway.
Shaina Hubers was not done yet. What would happen in this interview room would either clinch her guilt or prove she acted out of self-defense or was so emotionally disturbed that she could not be convicted of murder.
Your name is Shayna?
Shayna Hubers.
The right to remain silent. Anything you say can always be used against you in a court of law.
After giving her Miranda, she said that she wanted an attorney, and I pretty much quit asking her questions. She started talking.
I don't have any serious injuries that I could have had.
Right.
And I shot him in self-defense because he's done stuff before where I've hit my head on a headboard and could have died.
She didn't like to be in there by herself. She wanted someone there the whole time to hear her side of the story, to hear her talk.
It's really messed up that we had to get into a physical fight and that this had to happen, you know. And if I could go back and go over again, I would rather have my head beat into the coffee table.
We were obviously ready to listen and wanted both sides of it. And, you know, at this point, did we have enough information to know if there had been a past of any type of abuse? That night, we didn't know that.
And he had put his arm across the table and had it in my face and was screaming at me at the top of his lungs after he had thrown me around the room. And was saying emotionally to me, "You're a fucking hillbilly. I fucking hate you. I hate your fucking Eastern Kentucky accent. I hate your mother. I hate you. I hate everything about you for what you are."
At one point, she said he picked her up and threw her across the room.
He was throwing me around the room.
And then he drug her out and threw her out the door. You know, there's going to be some red marking, some kind of bruising, something that would indicate there was some struggle. There was nothing like that in this case.
And her account of a struggle in the apartment did not match the crime scene photos.
Nothing was disturbed on the table. The bookcase had bullets standing on end, had pipes, like smoking pipes, had books. Nothing knocked over.
He was like this.
And then Shayna began to recount her version of Ryan's final moments.
It went like this. Literally. That's when I knew he was dead. Or close to it, and twitching.
I was in a back room with Chief Birkenauer listening to the words that she said. And I continued to find myself shocked by the harshness of her words, kind of a flippant nature.
Shot it once and didn't shoot again for a while. But I was watching him die. It was so painful to watch him die and to know that I had done that. That I just walked around the table and shot him where I knew he would die immediately.
Bill and I turned to each other and said, did we really just hear that? Did she really just say that? Over the years, I've seen people who have been in shock. I've never had anybody tell me that someone pirouettes when they're in shock, that someone sings when they're in shock, that somebody snaps their fingers and says, I did it, when they're in shock.
I did. Yes, I did.
She was desperate to tell her story, to have people hear her side. She wanted to get that all out there. And I really think in her mind, Shayna thought that everybody would just buy it, that none of us were smart enough to see beyond the facade.
For prosecutor Michelle Snodgrass, it seemed like a slam-dunk case of murder. And at first, that's just what happened.
Sentenced to 40 years for killing her boyfriend. His name was Ryan Poston.
Shaina Hubers guilty of murdering her boyfriend, Ryan Poston. The jury recommends 40 years, an emotional day for the family of the man shot to death.
But less than a year later, a crushing blow.
Well, it was discovered that there was a juror who had sat on our first jury who had previously been convicted of a felony offense. Under the law in Kentucky, if you have a prior felony conviction, you are excluded from serving on a jury.
Shaina Hubers' conviction was overturned, and the judge ordered a new trial.
There was disappointment on our part, but the real struggle for us was the pain for Ryan's family. That closure was torn away from them, that peace of mind was torn away from them, and that they were going to have to undo whatever healing they had done and live it all again.
At the Kentucky jail where she had begun serving her 40-year sentence, Shaina Hubers was jubilant. Now she had a new chance to tell her story, a new chance for freedom.
This was her last chance. We had no idea what direction her defense was going to go. We had no idea what she might take the stand and say. We knew all bets were off.
There's a big river separating northern Kentucky from Cincinnati.
You will find on juries here, as opposed to possibly over the river in a bigger city, that people believe in more traditional values. People expect people to conduct themselves in a certain way.
All rise.
But there would be nothing traditional in this trial.
To is now in session. Honorable Dan Zala presiding.
Please be seated.
Commonwealth of Kentucky versus Shayna Hubers, 12 CR 954.
Including graphic testimony about the couple's sex life.
Okay, at this time, the court calls upon the Commonwealth to commence opening statement.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Ryan Poston was alive for each of the 6 shots that Shaina Hubers pumped into his body. He was alive when she shot him here, 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 and here. And he was alone, except for the woman standing over him, gun in hand. His murderer. her. Shayna's young, she's attractive, she's articulate, she's well-dressed. The jury walks in and they see this girl and they might not think, looking at her, that she's capable of something like this. And that's why it was so crucial to give them the picture of who she really is.
You're gonna come to see that she is jealous and she is calculated, and most of all, ladies and gentlemen, she is manipulative. Someone who would go to the ends of the earth to get her way, because in her world, what Shayna wants, Shayna gets, and what she wanted more than anything in 2012 was Ryan Poston. There were only two ways he was leaving his condo that night, either as Shayna's boyfriend or in a body bag.
For the new trial, Shayna's family hired a new lawyer.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
David Eldridge of Knoxville, Tennessee, with a new strategy that did not rely on self-defense, but instead on her state of mind that night.
Our approach was to focus more on the extreme emotional disturbance. Kentucky's murder statute says if you kill someone, intent to kill them, that it's murder unless it's done under extreme emotional disturbance for which there's a reasonable cause.
I knew it was already done. It was already done.
For Shaina Hubers, a last chance to plead her case. If the jury believed her, she could be convicted of manslaughter instead of murder and be out of prison in a few years.
We were running a manslaughter defense, yes.
You'll hear terms like borderline personality, post-traumatic stress disorder, psychological outcomes, and how those are expressed in her experience and behavior.
And Shaina Hubers' defense lawyer painted a much different, darker picture of Ryan Poston than the jury had heard from the prosecution, feeling the stress of his job the night he was killed.
He is in a very dark mood, is very upset. Not too long after she arrives, he lights into her verbally, critical of everything there is to be critical of her about. Her mother, her family, her education, where she's from, her appearance, vile comments to her, verbal assault. And you will hear about how he looked, how his eyes were frightening, scary, dark. Burst out the door and physically attacks her. Or slams her arm into the door, physically attacks her. We believe the evidence would show you that Miss Hubers is not guilty of this trial. That she was privileged to act in self-protection, or she was acting under extreme emotional distress.
The prosecution began with the disturbing evidence of the crime scene, Ryan Poston's bloodied undershirt, and testimony from the first officer on the scene, David Fornash, who said he saw no evidence of a struggle inside the apartment.
What would you have expected to see if there was a struggle over top of the table?
I would have seen things knocked off the table and knocked over on the table.
Was it?
No, ma'am.
Was anything knocked over?
No, ma'am.
One last question. At any point in time, when you were with Miss Hubers, did you see tears?
No, ma'am.
Nothing further.
But for the prosecution, there was no stronger evidence than the video made of Shaina Hubers in the police station that night, played for the jury on the very first day. They saw her dancing, her singing, her admissions.
Yes, I did.
Her lawyers tried to put the best face on it, saying it supported the theory of emotional disturbance.
I think it's just bizarre behavior brought on by the stress of what she's gone through and her own psychological condition.
Even so,
Because I didn't want to watch him die.
Any defense lawyer would tell you that they would just as soon their client not have talked on a videotape.
I knew it was already done. It was already done.
For 3 hours after the events. No defense lawyer would say that was a good idea.
Your Honor, may we continue?
On day 2, the prosecution called one of Shayna's girlfriends, Dr. Christy Euler, a dentist with whom Shayna exchanged some damning text messages about Ryan.
Ryan's been begging me to ask if you could do his veneers. But please F them up and make him ugly so he'll never get another girl. I hate him.
And what is the next exchange between yourself and Ms. Hubers?
When I go to the shooting range with Ryan tonight, I want to turn around, shoot and kill him, and play like it's an accident.
When the prosecution called the former Miss Ohio, Audrey Bolte, to testify, she described the relationship with Ryan as just developing beyond Facebook friends.
Did you ever meet Ryan Poston in person?
No.
Based on cyber communications, how did he strike you?
Funny and smart.
To be frank, I think that Miss Ohio was called as a slap in the face to Shayna. I think they did it to get under Shaina Hubers' skin. I really do.
Mr. Alden, please proceed with cross-examination.
Shaina Hubers' lawyer used the beauty queen's testimony to show how Ryan was two-timing Shayna.
Do you recall that he told you that he had plans to watch the vice presidential debate with his parents?
Yes.
Now, did he tell you that he was also watching the debate with his girlfriend?
No.
Our position at trial was that he was sending a lot of mixed signals as to what his desires were in terms of a relationship with Shaina Hubers. She had been invited to his parents' home, which she took as a signal that their relationship was going to move forward. And that obviously was not what he had in mind, apparently.
And for this second trial, the prosecution had a dramatic new witness, a salesperson at a local mall where Shayna had gone shopping in the hours before she shot Ryan Poston, appearing to be upset.
Did you learn by listening what that individual was upset about?
She found out her boyfriend was seeing somebody else. She was just very, very upset, and she was kind of saying how she was going to kill him multiple times.
Can you say that again, please? I was talking over you.
Multiple times.
The prosecution closed its case with testimony from women who had been cellmates in jail with Shaina Hubers and said she admitted making up a story that Ryan had raped and physically abused her.
What did she tell you?
About the rape and the abuse, that it did not happen that night.
Nothing further.
Now, Shaina Hubers and her lawyer, David Eldridge, had to make a big decision. Should Shaina take the stand the following morning?
Shaina Hubers wanted to testify, and that's her absolute right to do so.
But if she did, prosecutors would be ready with an aggressive cross-examination. The defense of Shaina Hubers started strong, with neighbors who lived in Ryan Poston's apartment complex.
Would you raise your right hand?
It helped to back up Shayna's claim that she had been abused months before by Ryan.
This summer, she came to my door and was crying, and so I let her in. And she had like a red mark on her arm, right in here, maybe about the size of a handprint.
Okay.
And I said, what happened? And she said that she had gotten into an argument with Ryan, and he picked her up and threw her down in the hallway out of his condo. I told her that she needed to call the police.
Central to the defense case was a diagnosis that Shaina Hubers, for all her talents and charm and beauty, suffered from a borderline personality disorder, a diagnosis delivered by psychologist Dr. Thomas Schack.
My opinion is that at the time she shot Mr. Poston in 2012, Ms. Hubers' psychological condition was seriously abnormal.
And you also learn that the effects of borderline personality disorder are most intense in the early to mid-20s. And so she was at a particularly vulnerable time in her life.
Okay, your next witness.
In order to run that defense.
Time. I'm going to call Shaina Hubers.
It was, for all practical purposes, necessary for Ms. Shaina Hubers to testify.
Ma'am, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the statements and testimony you give at this trial will be true and correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Hubers, are you nervous?
Yes,
Get any sleep last night?
not at all.
I don't think I was surprised that Shayna testified because we knew that she had to try something different.
And for the defense strategy to work, to prove she shot Ryan Poston 6 times because of an emotional disturbance, she had to testify about the most intimate issues in their troubled relationship, what reporters came to call the orgasm defense.
There were continued issues throughout the relationship about the issue of orgasm.
And how did you respond to that?
I tried to please Ryan to the best of my ability.
How so?
He wanted to try different things, and he ordered different things off the internet to help me achieve orgasm.
It was something we just had to talk about. She obviously knew that would have to be a part of our discussion. It was not something that she relished by any stretch of imagination. It was not something I relished, talking to a group of strangers about such personal things.
Was there any other thing that Mr. Poston encouraged you to do in relation to your ability to orgasm?
Yes, sir.
And what was that?
He wanted me to obtain a G-shot injection inside of my vagina, and I'm sure nobody knows what that is. I didn't know what it was. It's a collagen injection inside of your G-shot, inside of your body.
There is no doubt that they tried to imply that Ryan had been emotionally abusive to Shayna. There is no doubt that's where they were going.
He screamed at me, "You're a up person, and you're a person because you were touched when you were a little girl, and that's why you can't orgasm, and that's why I can't love you, and that's why no one will ever be able to love you."
And then her dramatic version of what happened that night at Ryan Poston's apartment, a violent argument over breaking up.
I remember trying to stand up where I was sitting on the floor, and Ryan pushed me back down by my chest. He put his hand on my chest and pushed me back down onto the floor. And I was crying, and I was hysterically crying, and I recall Ryan standing over me and grabbing the gun that was sitting on the table and pointing it at me and saying, "I could just kill you right now and get away with it. Nobody would even know."
How did you react to that?
I was shocked. I was afraid. I didn't understand what I had done to deserve any of this.
Okay. Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what happened.
He set the gun back down on the table, and he walked around the table, and he was still talking, and he was still saying hurtful things. I don't remember exactly what. And he was standing up from the chair, and he was reaching across the table, and I don't know if he was reaching for the gun or reaching for me, but I was still sitting on the floor at this point in time, and I got up off the floor, and I grabbed the gun, and I shot him.
Yeah, she could play a part for the jurors, for the judge, for the TV cameras.
And Commonwealth Attorney Michelle Snodgrass was ready for the cross-examination.
Well, we prepped for years for Shaina Hubers to be cross-examined.
We had spent 7 years. 7 years we had been pouring through this material. Michelle, Cheryl, and I, and Bill Birkenauer knew this case so well that no matter which direction they went, I knew that we would have something to fight.
And it kind of all culminates in that one moment when you actually have the ability to cross-examine the murderer.
Hard for you, isn't it true, ma'am, when things end in a way that you don't want them to?
Sure, that's difficult for me.
Using some of the thousands of text messages between Shaina Hubers and Ryan Poston to challenge the claims that Ryan was the sexual aggressor.
If you would read those messages. What was the reason that you gave Mr. Poston for asking him to initiate sex with you?
I said I didn't want to force myself on him.
Any more? Was that also on there?
Yes.
Yeah, any more. You didn't want to have to force yourself.
Objection, Judge, to repeating the
I'm sorry, I was withdrawn. Thank you, ma'am.
And another from Ryan to Shaina to show he was not the callous brute she had described.
What did he say? Tell the jury what he said to you.
I know you did, and I really appreciate all of it, but it really makes it that much more apparent to me that you should probably be pursuing a relationship with one of those guys you were telling me about a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
It is always, always nerve-wracking to have a client be cross-examined, no matter the circumstances.
Especially when the questions turn to that tape of Shaina Hubers in the police interrogation room and her disturbing attempt at humor over the bullet she fired into Ryan's face.
And I will never forget when she said that she gave him the nose job that he always wanted.
He's very vain. One of our last conversations we had that was good was that he wants my best friend who's a dentist to do his veneers and wants to get a nose job. Just that kind of person. And I shot him right here. I gave him his nose job he wanted.
Nothing with Shaina surprises me. Any chance to be heard?
I think there are true people that are sociopaths, that have no concern, no empathy for anyone else. And that's what I thought I was looking at.
The prosecution wanted to show she was coherent throughout, hardly crazed or out of her mind.
I don't think that what I did was necessarily, like, completely wrong, you know?
I'm not saying that my statements weren't coherent. I'm saying my mindset wasn't completely coherent.
But there were some things throughout the course of your statement that were consistent.
Okay.
And seeing him twitch and it being painful for you was one of those things that was consistent and said by you over and over again.
I said that.
And because you didn't want to watch him die, you shot him more times, in your words, to the point where you knew he was dead.
I said those things.
Is that similar? To what people do when they see an injured animal?
Objection, Judge.
Sustained.
Withdrawn, Your Honor.
Please
And nothing
disregard
further.
that question.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
She treated him no better than roadkill, shot him and put him out of his misery.
All rise. Kent County Circuit Division 2 is now in session.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we will begin closing arguments, and by rule, the defendant goes first.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we have told you the truth about Shaina Hubers. Good, bad, embarrassing, humiliating.
Certainly we wanted them to go into the jury room thinking that Shaina Hubers acted that night under an extreme emotional disturbance for which there was a reasonable cause.
Degrading her own self-worth. I can't love you. No one can love you. You can't orgasm because you were touched as a child, and no one will ever love you. At that time, physical and verbal assault on Ms. Hubers. And it's against that backdrop that they end up on opposite sides of this table with a gun on the table.
Shayna's condition combined with Mr. Poston's actions combined to create that extreme emotional disturbance, and thus she was not guilty of murder.
Ms. Snodgrass?
Yes, Your Honor. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. He's burning in hell, and it feels good. Those are her words, not ours. Shaina Hubers has proven herself over and over and over and over again to not be trustworthy with her actions or her words. She will lie to get what she wants, just like what she said before. I'll go to the ends of the earth to accomplish my goal. She shot him in the head. What kind of a person is it that raises the gun again and aims and fires again? And if celebrating Ryan's death isn't enough to show you that she danced, that she came from evil or malicious purposes, how about this? I did it. I did it. I don't know what could sound more malicious than that. A celebration of taking another person's life.
My job was to make sure that the jury knew that once we cleared out all the lies, and once we focused on Shayna's words, the crime scene, and the history in this relationship, that they would see that there was no other choice but murder.
The trial had lasted 10 days, but the jury took only 5 hours to return a verdict.
Probably would have felt better if they were out longer.
We were beyond nervous, sick to our stomachs. Anything other than a murder conviction would have been a devastating defeat.
All rise for the jury.
Is what you have the jury's verdict in your hand?
Yes.
Okay, would you give that to the bailiff, please? Thank you. Okay, verdict form. We, the jury, find the defendant, Shaina Hubers, guilty of murder under instruction number 5, signed by the foreperson, Season.
But the real drama was yet to come.
When the murder conviction came back, that was great and all, but that was just the first hurdle. Now it was time for sentencing.
In Kentucky, when an individual is found guilty of murder, they can be sentenced to 20 to 50 years or life imprisonment. That was the range that the jury was given.
And prosecutors felt anything less than the 40 years she had received in the first trial would be a defeat.
We all agreed life was the goal this time. Not a murder conviction, not 40 years. It was life this time.
And prosecutors called Ryan Poston's family, his sister and parents, to make sure the jurors understood the grief and emotion that his family still felt, even years after he was murdered.
Are you related to Ryan?
Ryan's my brother.
Explain to the jury what you have with you.
Because I'm 30 years old, I don't need to bring a teddy bear up with me. This teddy bear was made by Jay's sister. This is Ryan's shirt.
I'm sorry, but I'm unavailable right now. If you could leave a message, I will call you back as soon as possible. Thank you.
That's it. That's all we have. A voicemail.
It is daunting to know that I've got another 30 or 40 years on this earth, God willing. I'll have another 35 or 40 Christmases without my son. I had my grandchildren stolen from me. I will never hold my grandchildren. She has decimated my life and many other lives. Ryan had a heart of gold. His goodness literally got him killed. His kindness got him killed.
Understandable emotions from both sides for the Poston family and for her, and and her mother in particular. I still remember her mother just in agony on the stand, pleading for her daughter, as any parent would.
Ms. Hubers, go ahead.
Shayna, as I said, is my only child. My child's life has also been taken. Her family also grieves. I'm not lessening or taking away from or trying to say that I don't understand the grief of this family, because I do. Both beautiful young people, both talented.
Thank you, Ms. Hubers.
Again, it only took the jury a few hours to reach a decision.
And do you have the verdict form? Yes. Would you please give it to the bailiff? Thank you. We, the jury, fix the defendant, Shaina Hubers' punishment for the offense of murder at life imprisonment. Signed by the foreperson.
That was what this was all about. That simple word, life. When the jury came back and they read the recommended sentence of life, that simple word was a moment that I don't think many people in this courtroom will forget. There were tears, there were hugs, and there was gratitude.
So was there justice?
How do you get justice for a life that was taken far too early?
There is no satisfaction. You think there's some kind of relief for it, there's no relief. This is gonna sound harsh, but I hope her day today is worse than it was yesterday, and I hope tomorrow is worse than it is today. She took a friend of mine for no reason at all. There'd be no penalty severe enough for there to be justice.
And a tragic update out of Escambia County, Florida tonight. The body of a private investigator missing for more than a month has been found.
Saying that body they found around noon today is believed to be that of Taylor Wright.
Deputies have charged Wright's friend, Ashley MacArthur, with second-degree murder.
Hey, Zach, your wife is, she's being arrested this evening and charged with murder.
What?
Ashley MacArthur. She's accused of murdering Pensacola private investigator Taylor Wright.
I don't know where she is.
Where's her body at?
I don't know where she is.
She's dead though. You know that?
You had a young woman, Taylor Wright, that was murdered. There was no question about that. She was shot in the back of the head and buried.
Do you know where Taylor Wright is? Do you know if Taylor Wright's dead? Did you kill Taylor Wright?
And what else did she say about finding her?
That she told me they'll never find that bitch. She's gone.
There will be no physical evidence showing you that Ashley MacArthur had anything to do with the death of Taylor Wright.
As to the charge in count 1, we the jury find the defendant Ashley MacArthur
County 911, what's the address of your emergency room? Okay, your wife is in a bar, you said she's unresponsive?
This is what he's going to tell you.
How to get out of that situation.
And I grabbed the gun.
Trying to find the first place to put a body.
No, sir.
The only thing they could do was kill him.
You want to say anything?
We, the jury, and to find the defendant.
It's a beautiful place. We're a place where people vacation. It's
We have the Pensacola Naval Air Station.
Love our Blue Angels, world famous for those. It's a great town, a great place to raise your family.
Like all cities, we do have murders, but anytime a murder comes up of this nature, it certainly draws attention.
First name is Taylor, last name is Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T.
Taylor Wright was 33 years old when her body was found, more than a month after she had been first reported missing.
Taylor should have called me. Taylor would have called me, and she didn't.
She was a former police officer from South Carolina turned private investigator. The mother of an 8-year-old son, Taylor moved to Pensacola after a contentious divorce and fell in love with a woman.
We met on an online dating app. We were in a relationship for a short period of time, but enough time to have sincere feelings and to say that I love this person, and she's told me she loved me back.
Cassandra Waller is a public school administrator who soon invited Taylor to move in with her.
She was kind, she was outgoing, she would give you the shirt off of her back. She was full of life, she was full of energy, she had all kinds of hope, had great big giant ideas.
But there were issues in Taylor Wright's life. Her new girlfriend suspected she was using drugs and had caught Taylor cheating on her with another woman. And Taylor and her ex-husband, Jeff Wright, were still fighting over their son and their money.
I just know that Taylor didn't feel like it was equal.
In violation of the court orders, Taylor had withdrawn $100,000 from a joint account with her ex-husband and asked another of her new Florida friends, Ashley MacArthur, to help her hide the money by putting it in Ashley's bank account. But now the divorce judge had ordered Taylor to show up with the money or face jail.
So the night before Taylor went missing, we went out to eat, and Taylor was just really stressed out. She was talking about how Ashley was holding on to this money, that Taylor needed to get it back, and she felt awkward about it. She felt like something wasn't right.
The next day, Taylor and Ashley were set to go to a bank in Pensacola to pick up the money Ashley had been holding for her.
And we gave each other a hug and a kiss, and at that time I'm walking out of my driveway, Ashley pulls up. I say, "Hey, Ash," and she's like, "Hey, Cassandra," and I said, "You guys have a good day." I got in my car and I drove away. That was the last time I ever saw Taylor.
A few hours later, Ashley called Cassandra to say that instead of going to the bank, she and Taylor had driven out of town to go horseback riding on a farm in East Milton, owned by Ashley's family.
I was like, "Weren't you guys supposed to go to the bank?" She goes, "Yeah, Taylor's really stressed out with the divorce stuff, and she's just been really emotional today. These are the things that she's telling me. Tell her everything's fine. Like, we'll get through this."
Later that night, she got this text message from Taylor's phone,
saying, I'm sorry, like, I'm not doing anything wrong. I started getting angry and upset because here we were in a relationship. I'm thinking Taylor's telling me that she needs time to herself and she's not including her partner, and it hurt my feelings.
And as the days and nights went by, Cassandra Waller was both worried something had happened and then angry Taylor might have left her for someone else.
I sent her texts, I tried calling her, nothing. No responses, nothing.
But after more than a week, what had begun as a missing persons case for police soon took on an ominous cast.
Everyone is initially a suspect. So certainly Taylor's ex-husband was certainly on everyone's radar, and Cassandra, Taylor's girlfriend at the time.
But very early on, we treated it as if it were a homicide.
Being handled by two detectives, Chad Wilhite and Richard Gigliotti, who had just been promoted to detective.
The first thing we did with this case was contacted Cassandra Waller.
There was a time they came to my house, and at one point, Detective Gigliotti crawled under my house. So I'm sitting on the front porch with Detective Wilhite bawling my eyes out because this is embarrassing. Why am I being looked at?
My intention right now is not to arrest you for anything. I'm trying to find out why your girlfriend's disappeared.
And here I am in this room that they would use to interrogate people, and it's padded walls. It's a place you don't want to be.
I can't help but be scared that I'm going to get in trouble for something that I did when I was trying to help.
She's in her inner circle. She's her girlfriend, so she needs to be pressured as well during the interview to gauge her reaction, see how honest she's being with us. Those questions do got to be asked. If you knew who harmed her, would you tell us?
Absolutely.
If she was dead right now and you knew, would you tell us?
I don't know.
Did you harm her?
No.
They asked me if I killed Taylor. And I lost it.
When Ashley MacArthur was brought in for questioning as the last person known to have seen Taylor Wright alive.
So let's start that day from the beginning.
She said she doubted any harm had come to Taylor Wright, offering suggestions about her whereabouts.
She wanted to appear as though she was cooperative, right? And she didn't want to deny anything that we asked. She wanted to seem cooperative.
Telling the detectives Taylor might just be off on a drug bid.
The only thing I worry about is with the drug situation. Like, I wouldn't even, if I didn't know about the drug situation, I wouldn't be worried about her. I would say Taylor's doing what Taylor does. But then that lifestyle becomes a different group of people.
Sure.
Which is what I worry about with her.
Sure. And we don't know that she ever had intentions on leaving. Maybe she wanted to go have fun, and then someone found her with a bag full of cash. And that's why we have to follow down every single avenue and ask all these questions.
Cassandra's understanding was that this money was in a safety deposit box of Ashley MacArthur's at Wells Fargo. So when Ashley was asked about a safety deposit box at Wells Fargo, she said that there was nothing.
Have you ever had a safety deposit box there?
No.
There was no safety deposit box, there was no account at Wells Fargo with money. That didn't happen.
But text messages on Taylor's phone made it clear Taylor thought her money was at the Wells Fargo.
Talking about meeting at the WF, likely being the Wells Fargo. Needing to get there, needing to get the money. Clearly that was a problem. We spent time driving the route that Ashley MacArthur gave us, that they took, looking for surveillance footage.
They found this surveillance tape at a gas station, nowhere near the bank, where Ashley says they stopped to buy Taylor a beer around 10 in the morning.
Have you ever seen her drinking at that time of day before?
No.
That was odd behavior.
And in fact, I said something to her. I was like, beer at this time of the morning? She was like, well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. I'm like...
It's a perfect response.
Then Ashley told the detectives they headed out to the horse farm in East Milton.
So we just drove out there, and she was just blowing off steam, I guess, and drinking beer. And we were just hanging out. She was a strange girl.
Ashley claims she then drove Taylor back from East Milton to Ashley's home, and that Taylor called an Uber and left.
She was fine. She just said that she wanted to go have a beer and that she was going to get an Uber to take her to go have a beer.
What detectives would soon discover was another claim from Ashley MacArthur that would not check out.
When we contacted Uber, Taylor's account hadn't been used in months.
Something was wrong. Something was definitely wrong.
Now, more than a month since Taylor Wright went missing, Cassandra Waller was increasingly desperate to find out what happened to her, pleading for help on Facebook.
Nobody's reached back out to me. I still haven't heard from her. Nobody's heard from her. So I'm calling hospitals in Louisiana, in Mississippi, in Alabama.
And Ashley MacArthur was busy calling the detectives to suggest where Taylor Wright might be hiding.
Hey, Detective Wright, it's Ashley. How are you?
Well, how are you?
Unaware that she had become the prime suspect.
She got back on the cocaine, and, do we need to, look in alleys, for her? Or?
She's definitely curious on what we're doing and where we're at.
She's definitely fishing for information, but we didn't want to tip her off.
I I was just calling to see if there was any update or anything going on.
And so on a regular basis, she would call me. And I had to, of course, be friendly with her.
I hate to bother you, but I checked.
All right, thanks, Ashley. I couldn't answer the phone, Shirley, and say, yeah, so, we'll be arresting you here shortly. You just wait.
The turning point in the case came from the records of cell phone towers, which keep track of which cell phones are nearby.
Your cell phone's always communicating with a cell tower, and the cell phone companies know exactly which tower it's communicating with.
And the data showed that Ashley's timeline, her alibi, did not check out.
And when we got that information, that's when we really found out, okay, Ashley and Taylor never went out to this East Milton family farm that Ashley was saying they went out to, where they were supposedly riding horses. We knew right away, very big deal.
The tower records instead showed her on that day about 30 miles away in the northwest part of the county.
And what is she doing up there? Detective Alverson and I she had the great idea of, let's check the property appraiser's website. And we typed in Ashley's maiden name, which is Britt, and it popped up. The first property record search found 2201 Britt Road. And lo and behold, it was in the cell phone tower information that we were receiving. It was right in the middle of all that data. It was a good moment. We're like, okay, we're getting somewhere.
And at that point, were you pretty sure she was the one?
Oh, certainly. Yes. Certainly. We had cell towers of her lying, we had the bank records, her depositing the money, and we have surveillance footage from banks showing her depositing Taylor Wright's checks. Checks that are signed Taylor Wright, but it's not Taylor Wright's signatures. They're not her handwriting.
But the detectives had to keep a tight lid on their suspicions because Ashley's husband, Zach, was also close to people in law enforcement, a former county sheriff's deputy.
In fact, we didn't tell many people here that Ashley was a suspect in the case because we didn't know what ties she had with people.
Now it was time to bring Ashley back in for what would be a showdown round of questioning.
Hi, how you been doing? We've turned up some things that we don't really know what to think at this point.
We knew this was going to be our last interview because at that point, we knew all the 3 simultaneous search warrants were going on at her house, at the farm, and at her family business.
So before we ask you any questions, you must understand your rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say against you can be used against you in court.
Detective Gigliotti played the role of the good cop, Will Height, the bad cop.
I don't have a problem confronting people with what I know is a lie. Someone has to play that role. I was fine with it at that time.
Starting with the cell tower data.
You had the ability to plot all your phone calls for that day. But when we started plotting all the phone calls that you and Taylor were making that day, there were some discrepancies in what you had told us.
Okay.
Okay. We know that you didn't go to Milton when you said you went to Milton.
We did go to Milton.
Not when you said you went there. You went that evening.
Next, Taylor writes checks.
Do you know whose signature that is?
It says Taylor's name, but it doesn't really look like her signature.
Would you maybe wrote her name on there by chance?
Probably not.
And then finally, what happened at that farm on Britt Road.
What were y'all doing out there at this farm? So we know y'all were there.
We picked up some stuff that Taylor had there that
What was it?
that she had stored. Some kind of lockbox that she had.
Why would you not tell us that originally?
Because she asked me not to tell anyone ever.
That's okay. It's a lie.
I gotcha.
Okay.
She seemed to get really closed off, I would say, kind of turning away.
I think she crosses her arms and her legs, if I remember correctly. I think I actually reach over and try to break that defense down.
Look at me for a second. Don't cross your legs and look at me for a second.
So you could tell she was definitely uncomfortable at that point.
What was going through your mind at that time?
What do you mean?
What were you thinking about?
I
It was kind of a regular day.
Regular day?
I mean, that.
If it's so regular, why would they tell us about this? Even if she didn't want you to tell us now, we're working a missing person case where your friend for over a year is missing.
I honestly didn't think it was very important to this at all.
The detective was having none of it.
Where is Taylor at? You need to tell us where she's at.
I don't know where Taylor is. I don't have a clue.
So you're the only one that was with her on this day at this farm that you did not disclose to us?
I didn't do anything to
You
her.
say this, if she's at that farm, we're going to find her because we're executing a search warrant out there right now.
That's fine, but she's not going to be there.
Then where's she at?
I don't know where she is.
Where's her body at?
I don't know where she is.
She's dead though. We know that.
She had two options, either tell us what took place out there or ask to speak to an attorney and terminate the interview.
Tell us what happened.
I think at this point I need an attorney.
The detectives had no choice but to let Ashley MacArthur leave the police station. The search at the Britt Road farm had still not turned up anything.
About an hour or two after she walked out of this department, I was on the phone with one of the supervisors out on the Britt Road property, and someone yelled in the background that they had a skull. I had no question, and I think either of our minds, that this was most certainly going to be Taylor Wright's remains.
And a tragic update out of Escambia County, Florida tonight. The body of a private investigator missing for more than a month has been found.
The body found in a shallow grave at the Britt Road family farm, covered with concrete and potting soil.
Hello?
Hey, Zach, your wife is, she's being arrested this evening and charged with murder.
What?
But Ashley MacArthur had not broken under the questioning, had not confessed to anything. Would there be enough evidence for a jury to convict?
For the record, we're here on the state of Florida versus Ashley MacArthur. Defendant is present with counsel. Assistant State Attorney is present.
And once again, the Law&Crime Network has picked a phenomenal trial, Florida versus Ashley MacArthur.
But there's cameras here, there's camera over there, there's microphone. This has nothing to do with you. If anyone has to sit up straight, it's me. If anyone has to put on lipstick, it's me. This is a criminal case. The defendant is charged with first-degree premeditated murder. I think I've covered everything. I think of Ms. Jensen. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. What you will see at the end.
Bridget Jensen is the chief of the homicide unit in the Escambia County District Attorney's Office.
I think one of the most difficult things to overcome was Ashley herself. She was this very small, very pretty, kind of meek, quiet-spoken female who'd never been in trouble. So from the outside looking in, no one would think that she would do something like this. And really what you will see in the end is that Ashley MacArthur had the motive to kill Taylor Wright, money. She had the opportunity to kill Taylor Wright. She did in fact kill Taylor Wright, and then she tried to cover it up. But to get to that ending, we have to start at the beginning. Taylor Wright withdrew $100,000 from the bank when she wasn't supposed to. And then she was trying to hide that money from her ex-husband. And she also asked her friend, this defendant, Ashley MacArthur, to help hide the money. You will see the pressure that Taylor Wright was putting on Ashley MacArthur to get this money. And the reason that matters is because the money was gone. Ashley MacArthur had spent it. Friday, September 8th, 2017 is the last day that Taylor Wright is known to be alive. She was with this defendant, Ashley MacArthur, and they were supposed to be going to the bank. Taylor Wright was never seen alive again.
Ashley MacArthur was represented by a father and son team of lawyers, Barry and John Barasset.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as you sit through this case, you will see the evidence isn't there. There's reasonable doubt in this case, and that's what I was trying to convey to them in the opening statement. There will be no physical evidence introduced in this trial showing you that Ashley MacArthur had anything to do with the death of Taylor Wright. There will be no eyewitness testimony introduced into evidence showing you that Ashley MacArthur had anything to do with the death of Taylor Wright. There will be no murder weapon introduced into evidence that has any connection to Ashley MacArthur.
The first witness called by the prosecution was Taylor Wright's ex-husband, Jeff Wright, who had briefly been considered a possible suspect.
Were you and Taylor legally divorced?
Yes.
Essentially had to clear him. And I think if the jury didn't hear from him, it would be probably a weakness for the state's case. Mr. Wright, did you reach out to Ashley MacArthur on Facebook?
I did.
And did you ask her if she maybe knew where Taylor was?
I did.
And what responses did she give you?
She said that she had last seen Taylor with 2 backpacks, significant amount of money, that Taylor was nervous about the upcoming trial.
The defense used Wright's testimony as an opportunity to raise a question of whether he had a motive to harm Taylor Wright.
She had antagonized a lot of people, and especially over the divorce and the money issues with her husband.
Fair to say that Taylor Wright was making it very, very difficult for you to get this money back.
That is correct.
But MacArthur's lawyers knew that police had established Jeff Wright's whereabouts hundreds of miles away in North Carolina, and they knew better than to outright accuse Jeff Wright of the murder.
Yeah, we can't lose credibility with the jury. We can't make it so incredible that they don't believe us.
On the second day of the trial, the prosecution called Taylor Wright's girlfriend, Cassandra Waller. She was nervous about making eye contact with Ashley.
Now, do you see Ashley MacArthur in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you please point to her and identify what she's wearing?
She's right here. She's wearing a black outfit. And then I looked at Ashley. Ashley never looked at me. Ashley was always looking down at her scribble pad.
Let the record reflect this witness has identified the defendant. During the course of your relationship with Taylor Wright, did you ever have an opportunity to see her handwriting?
Yes.
Did she write you letters?
Yes.
Did she give you cards?
Yes.
Were you familiar with her handwriting and her signature?
Yes.
Again, I'm showing you State's Exhibit number 26. Does that look like Taylor Wright's handwriting?
That is not Taylor's handwriting.
Or her signature?
Or her signature.
But on cross-examination, Cassandra Waller testified she never saw any evidence of threats by Ashley MacArthur against Taylor Wright.
In all the times that you saw Ashley MacArthur and Taylor Wright together, you never heard, saw anything to indicate to you that Ashley MacArthur was threatening to harm Taylor Wright, causing her, going to cause her any physical harm, anything like that?
No.
And no indication that Taylor Wright was scared of her or anything like that?
No.
The defense then raised questions about Cassandra's own, at times, challenged relationship with Taylor Wright, citing the text she had sent to Taylor on the first day she was missing.
As those text messages show, you called her a liar.
I did.
You called her a drug user.
I did.
What I was trying to point out is that Taylor had a somewhat volatile life. Going back to late July 2017, you indicated to us that you received information that Taylor was having some sort of relationship with another woman over in Mississippi, correct?
Yes.
She had this secret girlfriend in Mississippi. She was known to use drugs. Just because you don't hear from her on September 8th or 9th doesn't mean she was murdered at that point. That was the point I was trying to make with Cassandra.
It's got to be clear as day that I have nothing to do with this. And the fact that they still played that I could have possibly been somebody for the jury, that could have ruined my reputation, my professional career. They'll throw anything and everything out there. That's not okay.
Testimony would show that Ashley came from a solid middle-class family, but could often be found in strip clubs and sketchy bars, where her girlfriends and a bartender testified she talked the night before Taylor disappeared about killing her with an overdose of cocaine she had just purchased.
Did Ashley tell you, either before, during, or after you went to Babe's, what she was going to do with the cocaine?
She said that she was going to put it in Taylor's beard.
What did you hear Ashley say?
That this world would be better if Taylor wasn't here and that she wasn't a good person.
Because one time she said that she's too small to hurt anybody, she'd just shoot them.
And then this, the night Taylor went missing.
Did you ask Ashley what she did with the cocaine?
That she put it in her beer and Taylor spit it out because she said it tasted sour.
The prosecution's case depended heavily on Ashley's motive, that she could not give back Taylor Wright's money because she had already spent it on a man with whom she was having an extramarital affair, a bar owner named Brandon Beatty.
At some point, did you and Miss MacArthur start a sexual relationship?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I was able to trace $30,000 in cash that Ashley had used to buy her boyfriend a boat. Was she paying the Gulf Power bill at Styx?
She did a couple times.
Was she buying supplies at Sam's Club for your business?
Yes, ma'am, she did.
Okay. In approximately August of 2017, did she buy your motorcycle?
I'm not sure that yes, she did purchase a motorcycle.
Okay.
A purchase made a few weeks before Taylor Wright went missing.
How much and how often was Ashley MacArthur spending money on you? I'm sorry?
I don't know how to answer that, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Pretty regular.
And what did she say about her friend being missing?
The police had took her phone, or she told me that the girl had ran off with her husband's money or something, and just gone.
Okay. And what else did she say about finding her?
That she told me they'll never find that bitch. She's gone.
But the defense would have its own cards to play, including a video of Ashley MacArthur that would give her lawyers a surprise opening to undercut the prosecution case.
Hurricane Dorian, now a Category 2 storm, strengthening this morning, threatening to hit Florida as a major Category 4 hurricane.
In the middle of the Ashley MacArthur murder trial, Pensacola came under a hurricane watch. And in the courthouse, Judge Jan Shackelford urged the lawyers to speed things up.
So what I read in the most recent update was alarming.
Showing Dorian on the move, you see it right there, making its way through the Atlantic. As you can see, this storm is just getting bigger and bigger.
But prosecutor Bridget Jensen was intent on playing the full 6 hours of the 2 police interrogations of Ashley MacArthur.
I think that was important because the jury gets to see Ashley MacArthur.
I wouldn't think so. I don't believe Taylor's been harmed. I think Taylor's doing what Taylor does.
If you looked at the first interview, Ashley was almost kind of flirty, maybe a little playful with law enforcement.
Has she ever come on to you, or?
Taylor asked me one time if I would have a threesome with her and some guy. And I'm like, no, thank you.
And the second interview, her demeanor was so different. I think she knew at that point, she was probably caught.
So you're the only one that was with her on this day at this farm that you did not disclose to us?
I didn't do anything to her.
If she's at that farm, we're going to find her because we're executing a search warrant out there right now.
That's fine, but she's not going to be there.
So it was good, I think, for the jury to see that she had lied, and she got caught up in her lies and couldn't come up with excuses fast enough.
Then where's she at?
I don't know where she is.
Where's her body at?
I don't know where she is.
She's dead, though. You know that?
This is a perfect example of when you talk to law enforcement too much, Whether you're guilty or innocent, it's going to come back and hurt you.
And the father and son team of defense lawyers could do little to challenge much of the other prosecution's evidence, too. The gruesome photos of Taylor Wright's body wrapped in a hammock in a shallow grave, a bullet hole in the back of her head, the testimony about the cell phone towers that put Ashley MacArthur at the crime scene.
You have in the cell phone records the maps that were put into evidence. Cell tower near the Britt Road farm at 12:10 p.m.
The forged signature on Taylor's cashier's check deposited in Ashley MacArthur's bank account.
Taylor is missing, and she is still depositing Taylor's money.
And the suspicious text messages from Taylor's phone after she was likely dead. But then a video that the prosecution hoped would help clinch the case gave the defense a surprise opening. Surveillance video from a Home Depot of Ashley MacArthur buying concrete and potting soil the day after Taylor went missing. A store clerk, Devontae Sims, helped her make the purchase.
I was walking through the store and asked her, did she need help?
What was she looking for?
Type of concrete.
What type of concrete?
She just said she was, sorry, like a fast-setting concrete.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
A fast-setting concrete.
But then, looking at the crime scene photos, Sims testified the textured, rocky concrete on Taylor Wright's body appeared to be different than what Ashley MacArthur bought.
Is the concrete that this lady purchased, is it textured?
No, ma'am. It's like fine dust.
Is it like rocky?
No, ma'am.
What's it says?
No, ma'am.
The defense was jubilant.
I leaned back and made a comment to my dad. The comment was just boom, like I was happy, and I'm sure you can get the photographs. He said the concrete that Miss MacArthur bought was very fine like dust. The concrete on top of Taylor Wright's body was very pebbly. You could see rocks in it. It was not fine like dust.
And then the defense set out to prove in its case that Ashley MacArthur would not have been able to lift a 50-pound bag of concrete or even Taylor Wright's body because of a back injury she suffered 8 years earlier. Her mother, Rhonda Britt.
Did you see her ever lift any heavy objects?
No, she tried not to because it hurt her back.
Have you ever seen her lift anything like a 50-pound concrete bag or anything that heavy?
No.
And is that to this day?
Yes.
I think it definitely was hard to picture how this little girl could move a dead body. But at the same time, Taylor was not a big girl either. I think where there's a will, there's a way.
In the end, the defense case rested mostly on the fact there was only circumstantial evidence, no fingerprints, no DNA tying Ashley MacArthur to the crime scene.
When you were here, you were the lead investigator for the Escambia County Sheriff's Department on this investigation, is that correct?
Yes.
And as far as physical evidence or forensic evidence, you never found any physical or forensic or trace evidence that linked Ashley MacArthur to the homicide?
I did not know, sir.
It is the state's job to give you everything. The good, the bad, the ugly. And you heard some very unflattering information about Taylor Wright. And you may not like some of what you heard about Taylor Wright. But in this trial, she is the victim. So let's not forget that she was the 33-year-old mother of a child. And she was a human being. And our laws in the great state of Florida do not classify human beings. So her life means no less than anyone else's. And this woman sat there hour after hour in those interviews. You saw her, calm, cool, collected. Not 1 ounce of sadness or concern or worry for her friend that was missing. She was so forthcoming about all the bad things that Taylor did. But you know what she wasn't forthcoming about? Those deposits of Taylor's money that she made and that property on Britt Road. And why? Because as she sat there giggling and laughing and joking with law enforcement on September 18th, she knew that Taylor was out there on Britt Road. Because that's where she murdered her, and that's where she tried to cover up her body. Ladies and gentlemen, Ashley MacArthur had the motive, Ashley MacArthur had the opportunity. Ashley MacArthur murdered Taylor Wright, and then she tried to cover it up with lies, concrete, and potting soil.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Barry Barasset.
We're here about a murder case, the most serious crime you can be charged with. She is not charged with stealing any money. She's not charged with lying. She's not charged with being unfaithful. She's not on trial for anything other than first-degree murder. They've got to prove that the crime occurred, and they don't have any physical evidence. They have none. There's no DNA linking Miss MacArthur to Taylor Wright's death. There's no trace or scientific evidence linking her. You've seen enough on television. You see what happens when somebody's traumatized, if they've done something, if they've killed somebody, or if they've seen somebody kill somebody. You just don't turn that on and off. There's nothing to indicate anything in her demeanor through these videos that they've got, that they put in, or her clothing or her dishevelment, that indicates that she was killing somebody or dragging somebody's body around. There's nothing there. And that's strong evidence, physical evidence that you can see, not something the state is suggesting. Here's the kicker. Now, the concrete. You have photographs. She put one of them up on the screen, a big one, and you saw the concrete. That concrete was rough concrete. It is not the concrete that she purchased. When you consider the evidence and the burden that the state has, I ask you to do your duty in this case, because there is a reasonable doubt, and I ask you to return a verdict of not guilty of Miss MacArthur.
All right, we're back on the record, State of Florida versus Ashley MacArthur. My understanding is we have a verdict.
They were out, I think, 4 hours, and you never know. You never know.
That seems like an eternity while you're waiting. It's 12 people. It only takes one person to find a hole that, that they don't think she's guilty.
Let me talk to everybody in the audience. Somebody out there is going to be unhappy. I don't know what the verdict is. I know there are some family members and friends for Ms. MacArthur, and presume that there are family members and friends for Taylor Wright.
I was in the courtroom. I am like 2 pews right behind Ashley. So the jury came in and there was a lot of unknown. What's going to happen, what's going to be said. And this judge, she talked about making sure that everybody was going to control their emotions when the verdict was read. And I was afraid. I had no clue what was going to happen at all.
Mr. Faust, were y'all able to reach a verdict? Yes, sir. Okay, all I want you to do is to hand it to court security, okay? I'm going to hand it to the clerk to publish.
Yes. In the Circuit Court in and for Escambia County, Florida, State of Florida versus Ashley Britt MacArthur, case number 1717CF005844A. Verdict as to the charge in count 1, we the jury find the defendant Ashley MacArthur guilty of first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm as charged in the indictment. So say we all. David A. Faust, foreperson, dated August 30th, 2019.
So I was trying to fight back all the tears and all the emotions and everything that I had been through.
So we knew that if she's convicted, the judge was going to sentence her right away, which the judge did.
I need all of you to stand. And Ms. MacArthur, I'm going to ask you one question. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? If so, say I do. Okay. Ms. MacArthur, I want to make sure that I ask you personally, do you want to say anything to the court? Okay. All right. Then, Ashley MacArthur, having been found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by a jury of your peers of first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm, I am going to adjudicate you guilty. I'm going to sentence you to life with a mandatory minimum 25 years state prison.
in the end, justice was done.
And she'll spend the rest of her life?
She will spend the rest of her life in prison.
She's gone. She's really gone. And this is done. It had been 2 years. And it was finally a book closed. It was, we're done. She did it.